Welcome back to Top 5. Five. The 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453. The 100 Years' War was a complex series of conflicts between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France, primarily over claims to the French throne. It began in 1337 when King Edward III of England, who was also a grandson of the French King Philip IV, asserted his right to the French crown upon the death of Charles IV of France. The war was marked by several distinct phases and encompassed many battles, political plots, and alliances. The first phase saw the English army achieving notable victories. The Battle of Crécy in 1346 was a pivotal moment, where the English longbowmen ravaged the French cavalry, taking a decisive victory that led to the capture of Calais. This strengthened English holdings in France and was celebrated in England. However, the tide began to turn in 1429 when the French, inspired by the peasant girl-turned-warrior Joan of Arc, successfully lifted the siege of Orleans and propelled Charles VII to be crowned King of France in Reims. Joan's determination and fervor rallied French troops and citizens alike, serving as a turning point in the morale of the war. The conflict, which saw the introduction of new military tactics and the rise of gunpowder weaponry, dwindled over the years. By 1453, the remaining English territories, including Bordeaux, were overtaken by the French, marking the end of the war. France emerged victorious, expelling England from nearly all its territories, solidifying its sovereignty, and laying groundwork for the centralization of power that would characterize the later French monarchy. 4. The Reconquista, 718-1492. The Reconquista was a prolonged series of campaigns by Christian states to recapture territory taken by Muslims on the Iberian Peninsula. It began in 718 after the Battle of Covadonga, where the Christian resistance led by Pelayo achieved a crucial victory in the Asturias, marking the beginning of a drawn-out struggle lasting almost 800 years. The process was not linear, it involved various kingdoms, alliances, and shifting power dynamics. Key moments included the establishment of powerful Christian kingdoms in Asturias, Leon, and Castile, which gradually chipped away at Muslim rule in Iberia. Major battles, such as the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa in 1212, were pivotal in the Christian campaign against Muslim territories, paving the way for the eventual decline of Islamic power in the region. The war saw the notorious 1492 victory by the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile, culminating in the conquest of Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Spain. This victory not only united Spain under Christian rule but also led to the expulsion of Jews and Muslims who refused to convert. The Reconquista forever changed the cultural and political landscape of Spain. The Catholic monarchs emerged as victors and used their newfound power to sponsor Christopher Columbus's voyage, ushering in the age of exploration. 3. The Israel-Palestine conflict, 1948-present. The Israel-Palestine conflict remains an ongoing and deeply entrenched geopolitical struggle that dates back to the late 19th century, escalating after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Considered one of the longest-running conflicts in modern history, it encapsulates deep-rooted historical, religious, and social complexities. The 1947 United Nations Partition Plan, which called for dividing the British Mandate of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab state, saw acceptance from Jewish leaders but rejection from Arab leaders. This resulted in civil war, and the subsequent declaration of Israeli independence led to the First Arab-Israeli War in 1948. Approximately 700,000 Palestinians became refugees during this period, which many Palestinians refer to as the Nakba or catastrophe. Over the decades, several wars and uprisings, including the Six-Day War in 1967, where Israel captured significant territories, and the First and Second Intifadas, have exacerbated tensions. Attempts at peace, such as the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, faced numerous setbacks, with both parties maintaining divergent goals. As of today, the conflict remains unresolved, characterized by violent clashes, political stalemate, and suffering for civilians on both sides. Over the decades, the narratives have remained deeply polarized, and international efforts to mediate have often faltered. With numerous ceasefires and intermittent peace talks, the conflict persists, haunting both Israelis and Palestinians, with neither side, won, in the traditional sense, allowing the conflict to propagate into its seventh decade. 2. The 335 Years' War, 1651 to 1986. Unlike traditional wars, the 335 Years' War was a conflict characterized by its incredible duration rather than actual combat. It commenced after a nationalist revolt in the Channel Islands against English rule, specifically the occupation of the island of Sark by the Kingdom of the Netherlands. On December 30, 1651, the islanders declared war on the Dutch, primarily as a reaction to the growing tensions at sea over trade routes and maritime dominance. Remarkably, this war saw little conflict; rather, a lasting state of war was maintained through minimal hostilities cloaked in bureaucratic formality. The war continued until a peace treaty was finally signed in 1986, nearly 3.5 centuries later. The reasons for the war's continuation are largely tied to its symbolic nature. It became a quirky footnote in history and was therefore preserved for posterity. Ultimately, the war can be framed as a win for the islanders of Sark. Their unique status and prolonged resistance served as a testament to their history and identity. The resolution of the war did not significantly alter their situation, but they emerged having set a record, thus cementing their place in annals of history for a conflict that can be described as farcical but historically significant nonetheless. 1. The Iberian Union War, 1580 to 1664. Undoubtedly, the longest-running conflict in human history is the war that enveloped the Iberian Union, an episode that spanned over 8 decades due to its complex contention between the kingdoms of Portugal and Spain. The conflict began when King Philip II of Spain claimed the Portuguese crown following King Sebastian's disappearance in battle against Morocco in 1578. The claim wasn't acknowledged universally, leading to a bitter struggle for independence that would shape the relationship between these two nations for centuries. Once Philip formally united the crowns in 1580, Portugal resisted. Throughout the late 16th and early 17th centuries, notable battles like the Battle of Alcântara in 1580 and the Battle of the Tagus in 1603 showcased Portugal's desire for autonomy. Spanish forces initially succeeded in suppressing revolts, but the Portuguese continued their resistance. Notable figures such as the Duke of Braganza and a series of rebellions kept hope alive. The conflict reached a pivotal moment in 1640 when a group of Portuguese aristocrats orchestrated a successful coup, resulting in John IV of Portugal claiming the throne and restoring independence. The subsequent Portuguese Restoration War led to several military skirmishes until a formal treaty was signed in 1664, solidifying Portugal's sovereignty. In conclusion, the Iberian Union War serves as a prime example of enduring resistance against colonial dominance. Portugal marked a significant victory over Spain and reclaimed its identity and independence after decades of struggle, effectively concluding one of the longest wars in human history.